My name is Glenn Conover. I'm a master's student at OSU under the guidance of Dr. Alicia and Dayton Lambert. I'd also like to give special thanks to Dr. Curtis Jones for his efforts in calibrating the EPIC model. As Chuck said, I'm looking at the technical and economic efficiency of double cropping systems in the Southern Great Plains. And just to kind of review and get a better understanding of why we might do this, we know we're last in ag total factor productivity growth. We experience lower yields and yield stagnation in comparison to other regions. We also, for the rain that we do get, right, we lose a large majority of it. We experience one of the largest rates in soil erosion. And we found that hot, dry, and windy events are occurring more frequently. So we're looking at double cropping systems as kind of a way to mitigate maybe some of these effects. The overall objective of our study is to measure and identify the most technically and economically efficient double cropping system under different nitrogen scenarios. So the three systems we look at are wheat corn, wheat grain sorghum, and wheat soybean. To kind of conceptualize how we got from a start to finish result, the EPIC model was used. So there was multi-year plot data and field trial data that was used in conjunction with weather data to generate yields for these three systems based on 25 different nitrogen scenarios. With that generated yield, we used a data envelopment analysis to calculate both a technical and an economic efficiency. Of course, with the economic efficiency, we need costs associated with the system. So we used a 5-year average OSU budget as well as nitrogen price data for the period of the study, and for the revenue side of things, commodity price data. As far as the simulation goes, it was assumed to be from 1995 to 2019 in El Reno, Oklahoma, under conventional tillage practices using UAN 28 as the fertilizer of choice. I will say any nitrogen rate or price was based on nitrogen basis of UAN 28 on any additional slide. Here are our nitrogen scenarios. So there's N1 through N25. For each system, you'll notice there's 3 application dates. So we assumed a split winter application, pre-plant October 1st, in-season February 15th, and a summer pre-plant on May 15th. As far as the rates go for the winter application, they range from 0 to 107 pounds of pure N per acre. And the summer crop was 0 in levels of 0, 54, 107, 160, and 215. It'll kind of help conceptualize the result to get there too. That I like to look at it in sets of 5. So if you look at N1 through N5, right, the summer application is held constant. And the only thing that is changing is the winter application rates. And as you move further to the right, we're increasing winter applications at the same rate, right? But the summer application across the board is increasing. Just to kind of wrap our minds and get us into what a data envelopment analysis does, it essentially creates an efficiency frontier. It creates this piecewise frontier amongst a set of, say, farms. So here we have farms from A to F, and A, B, and C are efficient, where D, E, and F are inefficient. The reason being that D, E, and F are inefficient is because they're all producing the same level of output, but D, E, and F are using more inputs. Therefore, they're inefficient. Just for the sake of time, I won't spend too much time on this, but the technical cost and revenue efficiency scores all range from 0 to 1, where 1 is efficient. And it's essentially a ratio of some optimal, whether it be revenue or observed revenue. And based upon that ratio, that's how we can understand that. So for example, the cost efficiency, if you're not producing at the minimum cost, you're producing at a higher cost, you're going to have a score less than 1 and therefore cost inefficient. As far as the profit efficiency goes, this can range from a negative value or a negative score to 1 being the efficient score. We are limited to, as far as our calculation goes, specifically with the technical and economic efficiency, or excuse me, the technical and cost efficiency. Sorry, specifically with the technical and cost efficiency, we're kind of limited. We can't compare across systems, across all systems, right? Think, for instance, if I had 2 systems that use the same input, produce the same level of output, but then, you know, one system was a grain sorghum and one was a soybean, right? At face value, we can't technically compare them to, right, until we monetize them. Therefore, for the technical and cost efficiency, we look just within the same system. So wheat, corn, the 25 scenarios against each other, all the way down to the wheat, soybean, which is just the 5 scenarios against each other. And then finally a wheat only, just looking at the effects of the double cropping systems on the technical and cost efficiency of the wheat on wheat only. The revenue and profit, again, we can do this across systems because we're essentially putting a dollar amount per acre on the output, right? There you go. Here's our generated yields coming out of EPIC. So if you look at the left column, this is our wheat yield within each respective double cropping system. We can see the yield response to the increases in winter rates. On the right-hand side, we have our summer crops. Again, here we see the increase in yield response to increases in the summer application there. The wheat soybean was, the soybean yield was relatively the same, right? Because there was no changes, or there was 0 summer application in this system. The operational costs that came from OSU budgets, we excluded fertilizer costs because we wanted to calculate that separately. They included your typical budget items of seed, pesticide, crop insurance, etc. One thing I want to point out is that corn amongst the summer crops had the highest cost per acre. And essentially what we did here was we assumed wheat to be the same across all systems and just added the relatively summer crop operational cost to wheat. The nitrogen prices were collected for the 25-year period. We used the 2011 National Index for nitrogen prices paid. We benchmarked that to 2019 and then used a nitrogen basis of 43 cents per pound of UAN 28 to essentially convert all of these index prices to real prices. The same was done with commodity prices, right? We came from the NAS data set. We inflated these to 2019 US dollars and detrended them. Just for the sake of time, the 2 things I'd really like to point out here are the higher prices in, say, for instance, the year 2012, as well as relatively lower prices around 2005. Finally, we get to our results. The technical efficiency of wheat, just looking at wheat within all systems. I like to look at it again in sets of 5. So if we look at N1 through N5, the only thing changing is the winter application. And we can see here that as you increase winter application, our technical efficiency for wheat goes up. And then when we look across an entire system, the increases in the summer nitrogen rate is also increasing our technical efficiency for the wheat crop. One thing to note is kind of the subtle differences between wheat corn and the wheat sorghum system. In the high rates of summer application, we found that wheat was technically more efficient than wheat corn. And then the, sorry. Now I gotta click, I guess. There we go. When we look across or within the same system, as far as the technical efficiency goes, it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Maybe a super efficiency might be a better method of looking at this. They're all relatively close to 1 when looking within the same system. When we go to cost efficiency, right, it's telling us what we'd expect as we increase our nitrogen rate, our cost efficiency goes down, as well as our summer application here. Looking within the system, I like to look at the wheat, grain, sorghum. So again, you look at the first set of 5, we see that as we increase our winter nitrogen rate, our cost efficiency goes down. And then you look across the entire board, there's a downward trend as the summer application increases as well. When we get into revenue efficiency, it's, as we'd expect, inverse to the cost efficiency. Here, as we increase our nitrogen rates, our revenue efficiency increases. There was kind of one outlier as we're really making this figure in 2011, a year of an extreme drought, right? We saw that the wheat sorghum performed better in comparison to the other systems. Moving on to the profit efficiency, it's kind of a combination of the cost and revenue, right? Similar to the revenue efficiency, as we increase both the winter and the summer nitrogen rates, our profit efficiency increases. It's kind of hard to tell from the figure, but the high rates of summer and winter nitrogen rates in the wheat corn typically performed well over the 25-year period, as well as the high winter applications in the wheat soybean, the N4 and N5 system or scenario. Again, we wanted to point out that, hey, in a year of drought, right, we can see that our drought resistant commodity is performing fairly well as compared to 2016, right? Say a typical year where, again, we're seeing the high rates of summer and winter nitrogen rates performing fairly well, or the best, in wheat corn and wheat soybean. That's a drastic change, or almost a flip-flop of the figure. When we look at commodity prices, 2005, say a low year, it's very similar to our typical year for weather, say 2016. But when we go to 2012, a year of high prices, right, we don't see that much of a difference as compared to the weather data, where there's a big flip-flop and change in which system is more efficient. This table just shows the top 25, or excuse me, the top 15 profit efficiency medians for each system. Again, just showing that over the 25-year period, the high rates of summer and winter nitrogen rates in the wheat corn performed somewhat the best, as well as the high rates of summer and winter and summer applications in the wheat soybean. Overall, I think some of the key takeaways is the cost efficiency is as we would expect. You increase your nitrogen use, you're going to be less cost efficient, or excuse me, you're going to be, your cost efficiency decreases. Your revenue and profit, as you increase your nitrogen rates, that increases. Specifically, wheat, grain, sorghum, as we would expect from a drought resistant commodity, performs fairly well in comparison to the other systems. And another key thing is the weather has a larger impact on the profitability as compared to changes in commodity prices. This flip-flop is, a much bigger change than just commodity changes. And that goes along with typically our commodity prices are going to follow somewhat closely to our input prices. So that's all I have.